Hello and welcome to another CTE update, and it's been a busy week. So typically when I'm not available to do videos, you get a lot of news. So this is what has been going on with CTE this week. We've got information on the console version of CTE, we've got information on the hardline version of CTE, but we also have a lot of information as to the spring patch and some new netcode for the Battlefield 4 CTE. So I'm going to start off with the spring patch. Right, so for 3 days this week we got to test out the spring patch build. And first thing to say is that none of the items in the spring patch require premium. They're going to be available to everyone. First up we have Gunmaster. We've seen this before, but we now know that there are 5 modes for Gunmaster. We have Standard mode, which is the Battlefield 4 version. We have Classic mode, which is as close as they can get to recreating the Battlefield 3 version. Pistols only. Then we have DLC weapons. This will let you use weapons for DLCs that you don't own. So you can use the Phantom Bow in this as well, and it lets anybody. You don't have to be a premium member, you don't have to own the DLCs, you can just go out and play the DLC mode of Gunmaster and use all the guns that you don't normally have access to. The final mode is called Troll. So this uses all the weird and wacky weapons. So ballistic shields, you can use RPGs, I think it's even got claymores in it. So that mode is essentially a troll build because DICE know that if you let people make their own builds, that's what they're going to do anyway. And of course we have the new guns that I've shown you before. So we got the AN-94 assault rifle, the L86A2 LMG, the Mare's Leg pistol, and we've got the Groza 1 and the Groza 4. So one of those is a carbine, one's a PDW. And those 5 will be unlockable by anybody. We're also getting the full weapon balance pass. So all the changes that they've made to things like guns having less ammo, burst fire modes on guns that didn't used to have them, single shot modes on guns that didn't used to have them, velocity increases, velocity decreases, recoil adjustments. Pretty much every gun has been altered in this weapon balance pass. Not majorly, because they've done quite a few balance passes, you don't really get any major changes. I suppose the biggest change is 2-shot burst modes being put on some other guns so that they compete with the AN-94. And the other major change we're going to see is the new damage fall off suppression system. So I've talked about this in a previous video if you want to go back and look at it, but essentially what it means is as your damage falls off from a weapon, the amount of suppression it does increases. So when you're doing minimum damage at long range, that's when you're doing the most suppression. If you're doing maximum damage at close range, you're doing virtually no suppression. And finally for the spring patch, a question that gets asked a lot: are there going to be maps in the spring patch? The answer is no. The night maps aren't ready, the community map isn't ready, and although they are going to be remaking some old maps, those aren't even in the first stages of testing yet. So probably in the next patch update we'll get the night map and the community map, and then maybe the patch after that we might get the remade maps. But nobody knows when the maps are going to be released officially yet. Another big change we've seen on CTE this week is some work on the netcode, and it's very major changes. So in the live version of the game that you don't play on CTE, the base level of the netcode is 10 Hz. And then what you're looking at and what you're shooting at and the bullets coming in at you are all running at 30 Hz. The new netcode is running at 60 Hz or 120 Hz. It's still using the same view system, so this higher tick rate is essentially where you're looking, where you're aiming, where your bullets are going. So information about character movement, damage, bullet travel, all of that is processed much faster. While this sounds great, it's not necessarily working that well in testing. Some people are saying, oh, this new netcode's great. I find it to be pretty awful. Well, the 120 Hz netcode on a 32 player server just doesn't work for me. The 60Hz netcode I think's fine, but the 120Hz netcode is just horribly sluggish and jerky. I've had problems where I've just died from standing next to objects. I've had problems where my character stops and then readjusts its position. And it's the same for other people. You'll see them running along and occasionally they'll slightly move to the side or slightly move forward faster than they should be. It doesn't quite look right and it doesn't quite feel right. The 60Hz version though seems to work fine. But like I say, this is very early in the testing and I'm sure they can tune the 120Hz version to feel better. When we played it on just 10-man servers, it was a lot better than it is on the 32-man servers, and I think it might be an issue of ping time. I play on servers where my ping is between 15 and 25, and I'm playing against people who often have a ping of over 200 who are logging on from Russia or from the USA. I think that may be the issue that the netcode is currently having. However, an even bigger problem than the performance issues with this netcode is how it's going to be run, because it won't run on current Battlefield 4 servers. So any server that's being rented won't run this new netcode. Most of the DICE servers won't run this new netcode. Well, not with the number of games they have on the servers at the moment. So this, I think, is probably either going to be for future games or just for the competitive scene. DICE and the server companies would have to spend a lot of money to actually get this running, by either putting in new hardware or by reducing the number of games run on an individual server. That would then put up the price of renting a server, and so I can't see this being a wide release. So that's what's been happening on the CTE servers this week, but it's not the end of the CTE news, because on Twitter we were given a screenshot of an Xbox One running CTE. So the console version of CTE should be coming relatively soon. Now, it's only going to be on Xbox One, I think. I don't think it's going to be on PS4 initially. All the evidence we've got, all the pictures we've got, and all the comments we have on Twitter seem to suggest it's going to be Xbox One. In fact, if you have an Xbox One and search for CTE in the games, you may well find it. You can't load it, but you'll be able to see that it's there. And it's a similar story for Hardline. People have been able to access a battle log page which shows Hardline CTE. Now, it's only a placeholder there at the moment, but we've also had some information that it's definitely coming and they want to test out some new netcode and one of the new maps for the next DLC. So Hardline CTE should definitely be coming before the launch of the next DLC. We don't have a release date for Criminal Activity, which is the first of the Hardline DLCs, but we do know that it's coming in the summer, and if they want to get some proper testing in before that, then CTE's really got to come to Hardline within the next month or so. And the final piece of CTE news is that you can now claim CTE dog tags for use in the live version of the game. So there's 3 different levels. CTE Noob, which requires you to have played 50 hours of CTE. CTE Advisor, which you need to have played 150 hours of CTE. And then you have CTE Specialist, which you need to have played 300 hours of CTE. Playing CTE for 300 hours to get a dog tag and camo is a bit extreme as far as I'm concerned. CTE's been out a year, so that would be about 50 minutes a day to get your camo and dog tag. I consider that I've played a lot of CTE making videos, testing things out, but I only get to 160 hours. So if I wanted to get 300 hours in a year, I would have pretty much had to have stopped playing the normal version of BF4 completely. But that's it for this version of CTE Update. Not sure when the next one will be because of the health issues I'm going through, but I'll try and do at least one a week to keep you updated on the CTE news and the Battlefield 4 news. Thanks for watching.